What's up? Yeah, just give me a couple minutes. I gotta put all this stuff away from the con. But I'm happy to see you from the Vault 39 recording room. This is the Twee'quel podcast. What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Alexander, the voice and the void, the lone wolf, your favorite host with a lisp. Welcome to another episode of the Twee'quel podcast. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing well. I've had a really good week. The weather's warm, a little bit of rain, but it's all good. Nothing big. I'm still on a high from going to Motor City Comic Con last weekend. I am just having so much fun. I still got stuff I have to put away from all the stuff that I bought at the con. If this is your first time hanging out with me, thank you very much for tuning into this pokey little podcast. You didn't have to come hang out with me today, but I'm glad you did. And if you've been rocking with us for a while, thank you very much for coming back. Like I said, this is your first time, check out some of the old episodes. I'm pretty sure you'll find something to entertain and educate you all at the same time. We're going to have some fun today. I didn't get a chance to go see Back to Black. It wasn't planned, but earlier on in the day I didn't have time to stop and see it, so we're not going to review it today. We'll do that one next week after I get time this weekend to go see it. But we are going to talk about SHôGUN, we're going to talk about If, and we're going to talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We're going to talk about all three of them. But before we get into those, let's get into the news. So kicking off our news today, we're going to talk about everything going on at the box office last weekend and actually over the last week. Number one at the box office was If. It's actually a really good movie. We will be talking about it, but it came in at number one over with 33.7 million. That's its opening weekend, and that is worldwide. Number two, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Kind of saw that coming. I'm pretty sure everybody saw that coming. It's now over $100 million worldwide. And number three is The Strangers. Nice little horror flick. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm hearing good things about it. I do want to go see this. It looks like a pretty good movie. That came in at 16.9 million. Kind of low for what it was projected, but still, it's still early. Who knows? It's up against stiff competition with If and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So we'll just hold on and hold off judging until after we see it. So don't forget, review for If and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and SHôGUN. That's going to fill out the rest of the show today after the news. Like I said, I didn't get to see Back to Black, the biopic about Amy Winehouse, but I will be seeing that this weekend over our long Memorial Day weekend, and I will be talking about it next week. Opening this weekend, though, is Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. I really do want to go see this. I'm a big Mad Max fan going back to the 80s, so I'm pretty sure this movie's going to be pretty good, but how good is it? I'll let you know after we see it. So Kevin Feige and everybody over at Disney really wants the X-Men inside of the MCU, and they want it now. They want it now so bad that they've gone ahead and hired a screenwriter to get started on the script for the movie. They got Michael Leslie. Now, if you don't know who that is, he's the man who, as of late, wrote Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, that movie was well received. He's wrote a couple of other things that he's worked on over the years, and he's always had a really good eye for political type of situations, especially with like Hunger Games. So he may actually fit really well for this X-Men movie. Now, me personally, everybody knows, I've said this 1,000 times, it would be Beau DeMayo. It would not be anybody else. That's who it should be writing an X-Men movie for the MCU, but it's not my choice. If it was up to me, it would absolutely be Beau DeMayo, unless he's done something illegal, but we've talked about that before. We're going to leave that alone. But yeah, it looks like we're going to get an X-Men movie. I doubt very seriously if it'll be this year, next year, or the year after. They're going to have to go through a good write. They're going to have to do the casting, and they're going to get everything done. So you're talking a year out before they even start filming. So next year, don't even think about the movie. The year after, that's when you start getting it into your mind. Are we getting a new Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Well, maybe. So the Amazon Prime series that starred Donald Glover and Maya Erskine. Now, the series itself is actually really good. We talked about the series here on the podcast. It's a really fun series. It doesn't have much to do with the movie outside of the bare bones, but it's still really good. Now, they were saying earlier this week that the series is going to go forward with a new season, and it was not going to have Donald Glover and Maya Erskine return, which more than likely, it seems like a good idea not to have those two return, not because they were bad, but the way that the series was structured. If you move on to a different couple, then it makes it seem like they're constantly being replaced, almost like James Bond-ish type of thing. So I kind of thought that that's where they were going, but now the newer report that just came out yesterday, it seems like Donald Glover and Maya Erskine may actually have a chance to actually come back in the series. I don't know how that's going to turn out. Either way, if they do return, good. If they don't, they move on to somebody else. That's still good. The series itself is just a lot of fun to watch. Like I said, it's not so much like the movie itself, but in bare bones and in name. But it's still really good. So if you haven't seen it, head on over to Amazon Prime and watch it. I guarantee you'll like it. So get ready for Peter Pan to have a nightmare. So the same guys, same crew, same team, whichever one you want to call it, that brought us Winnie the Pooh, that horror movie of Blood and Honey. Well, guess what? They're going to make a Peter Pan movie. So they've already made the Winnie the Pooh movie. They've also made the Bambi movie, which actually comes out this year. They're working on a Pinocchio movie, and all of these are horror takes on all of these classic Disney properties that we've seen as kids and most people know as. Now, yeah, a lot of these stories are actually a little darker than what we see in the Disney movies, but they go full on just horror, blood, guts everywhere. So they are working on a Peter Pan movie. It's going to be called Peter Pan is Having a Peter Pan Neverland Nightmare. I don't know how this is going to turn out. It's going to be ridiculous. Like I said, they're working on the Bambi movie. They're actually working on a Pinocchio movie, which is supposed to come out sometime next year. And they are working toward a shared universe called the Pooniverse. Don't look at me, I didn't make up the name. That is actually what it is. But yeah, they're working on the shared universe where all of these characters that they turned into horror icons, they basically share it, almost like Avengers, like Infinity War, right? Something like that. It sounds ridiculous, but you know what? I like ridiculous. Ridiculous works just fine for me. So when they have any more information about it, I'll let you know. I have a rule. If Daredevil is asking you for something, you might want to just give it to him and save yourself the trouble. Now, when I'm talking about Daredevil in this particular case, I'm not talking about Matt Murdock, the character. I'm actually talking about the man who's going to be playing him, Charlie Cox. So Charlie Cox has said in an interview earlier this week that he wants Tatiana Maslany to return to the MCU as She-Hulk and play his romantic back and forth within the Daredevil series. And he says that she deserves her own second season for her series. Now, me personally, and I've said this before, She-Hulk is actually the only series that's almost exactly like the comic that she comes from. Everything else is good, but they don't match up to the comic exactly. Now, if you are one of those people who say, hey, what's wrong with the MCU is that they aren't sticking close to the source material, She-Hulk did. There's nothing wrong with it. It was actually really funny. It was actually really good. Did they change a handful of things? Yes, but it was never enough to make you say that, they just went so far off the script. They didn't. It's a really good series. I personally would love a second season for She-Hulk. But Charlie Cox wants Tatiana Maslany to come back so she can play She-Hulk and be his romantic interest in his series and in She-Hulk. 2 thumbs up for me. So Disney, if you listen, give the man what he's asking for. Steven Spielberg is getting ready to return to his roots. Now, what I mean by that is he has a new film that he's working on. It actually has a release date, but we'll get to that in a second. So Steven Spielberg's new movie is going to be UFO alien based. Now, we all know Steven Spielberg from E.T. and so many other alien movies that he's done. The man just knows how to do UFOs and aliens. Even War of the Worlds. As much as everybody maligned the movie was still really good. Even if you don't like Tom Cruise, the movie was still really good. Either way, he's going back to writing a UFO movie, and he's actually going to be writing with one of his old former partners, David Culp. Now, they worked on Jurassic Park, War of the Worlds, and Indiana Jones together. So these two as a team is gold. They know how to work together. They know how to craft a movie. They know how to get things done. So if they're going to be working on a UFO movie, just like War of the Worlds, they already worked on, and it actually did great at the box office, I'm all for it. Anything Steven Spielberg does is, anytime he does a movie, I'm going to go see it anyway because the man knows how to direct a movie. But if he's working with his old partners that have always had surefire hits, I guarantee you this movie is going to be great. Now, the release date for this film has been set at May 15th next year. But that's the only information we have on it thus far, that he's writing it, and that's the release date. So 2025 can't get here a little fast enough. If you only got a year until that day, they got a lot of hustling to do. But either way, when the movie comes by, I'll let you know more about it. In the news today, talking about an unfortunate name mixed with an unfortunate price. Now 2 weeks ago, we started talking about a new streaming bundle with Disney and Hulu and Warner Brothers Discovery, right? So then, right after that, last week, we came back and told you about Netflix partnering up with Paramount and Peacock to have their own streaming service, but you had to have Comcast cable, right? But they said, well, maybe they'll pull back on that and you don't have to have Comcast. Well, we've got an update on that particular one, and it is exactly what we thought. Now, the price point itself is pretty good. So for the new streaming service where you would get Netflix, Peacock, and Apple TV Plus, it's only going to be $15 a month. So the price is actually pretty good for everything that you're going to get. But here's the kick. You're going to have Comcast cable in order to access the streaming service, which kind of negates the entire point of having a streaming service. We got streaming services, just like I've said before, to get away from cable. But if you're telling me I have to have cable to get streaming services, then what do I need the streaming services for? If they want this thing to launch and this thing to do well, they're going to have to just get away from cable. Now, the name of it through Xfinity, oddly enough, is going to be called Xfinity Stream Saver. That name is lame. I'll say it, you know it, they know it, but it's about as a generic name as you can get without, angering anybody else. So I guess that's why they decided to use it. But yeah, the fact that you have to have cable in order to access the streaming service, that just negates the whole point of having it. So I doubt very seriously if it does any numbers, but people are stupid, so who knows what they'll do. That's all the news for now. Don't forget to check over on the Instagram page at @the_Twee'quel_pod. Just give me a minute, and when we step back, we're going to talk about If. When I was a kid, I did not have an imaginary friend. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a completely wild imagination, but maybe a little wilder than most kids, but I had a big time imagination as much as the next person. So the idea of the movie If is kind of a new territory to me. I don't know anything about imaginary friends, and quite honestly, I don't even know anybody who had an imaginary friend. If I digged hard enough, I'm pretty sure I'll find one, but right off the top of my head, I really can't think any. So enter the movie If, which is written and directed by John Krasinski, which I thought was his directorial debut, but come to find out, he's actually directed a handful of things long before now, not just episodes of The Office, but he's directed episodes of other TV shows and a few films already. So, shout out to him. I like John Krasinski. So the movie stars Kaylee Fleming. She's been on The Walking Dead and a few other things. She's actually the young version of Rey in Star Wars films a couple years back. So that's where you may know her from. So she stars in the film, and we figure out that she can actually see these imaginary friends. So her and Ryan Reynolds, who turns out to not be her father, who I thought it was when watching the trailers, but it's not. John Krasinski actually stars her as her father in this film, who's very distant, and she lives with her grandmother, but I digress. She decides to team up with Ryan Reynolds in order to pair up these imaginary friends with kids who may need them. That's pretty much it, right? It sounds very simple, but that's pretty much the end of the premise of the film. Now, it's not a bad film. They team up, they help pair up kids with imaginary friends, and they go on a little adventure, and they just hang out and learn stuff about not only each other but about themselves. So this isn't a kids movie. It's not. Now, is it family friendly? Sure, you can take your kids and watch it. There will be things that they can enjoy, but this isn't a kids movie. This movie honestly is more for adults who have lived and lost things along the way, lost pieces of themselves, lost the magic in their life, right? Become a little jaded. And this movie is for them to run back and figure out parts of their childhood that they've lost, and to try to gain pieces of that, a little bit of that magic back in their life. That's what this movie is for. Think of it to be people my age. Think of like the Wonder Years, or something like that. Like I said, yeah, kids can sit there and watch it. They'll understand some things, and they'll get a kick out of it, but it's not for them. I thought going into it, it'd be more like Foster's Home for Imaginary people, but it's not. That is for kids, and adults will understand it. This is for adults, and kids will still understand pieces of it. So don't think of them as, the same thing, just one live action, one animated. Think of them as companions, right? Foster's would be for us when we were younger. right? And then now that we're older, now we would be a little bit more jaded. And so we would need something like If to remind us of those times that we've lost along the way. Like I said, think of like Wonder Years, Stand By Me, or The Middle, shows like that. That's kind of where If is going to fit in. It's a lot of nostalgia. It's a lot of adulthood pulling up those old memories to remind us of what we lived for and what we've lost along the way. That's exactly all this film is for. So if you go into it thinking of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, then you're probably going to be very, very disappointed. It's not that. It is still a really good, really fun film. So this is Memorial Day weekend. It's a really good unofficial start to summer and the time when you can go see movies. So if you're going to take your kids to see one movie, take them to see this. They'll understand it. It's just fine. There's a handful of things that I just didn't get about the movie. Like, how did this little girl take off and hang out with some guy that nobody else knows? She didn't know him. She just met him. She lives with her grandmother. Nobody sounded the alarm when this little girl started, took off and decided to hang out all day. But, I grew up in the 80s and that's kind of what we did anyway. So maybe that was the case. But either way, like I said, good film. See it. But, just leave your midlife crisis at home. So in total, there are actually 10 Planet of the Apes films. I had to sit there and count them, but yeah, there are actually 10. And yes, that is including the one in 2001 with Mark Wahlberg. So as much as everybody maligned the movie, people forget the movie was a huge box office success. There's a handful of, parts in it that, really needed work, but it was a good film overall. Now I want you to remember that because this new one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, is a lot like that one from 2001. Now, when I say it's a lot like it, I'm not saying exact story wise, but the feel of it, how it actually, went through its paces and came to its conclusion. It felt very much like watching that Mark Wahlberg led film back in 2001. Now, visually, this film is completely beautiful. Right. There are a few spots where you look at it and it's like, oh, yeah, that's CGI. But there are a lot of other times when you are staring right into the face of one of the apes, of one of the primates. And it's like, I don't know if that's CGI or if this is a real gorilla that's actually talking. CGI was very well done in this one. It proves that James Cameron is the only person who can give you great CGI for a film. And it also actually proves that CGI can be done well without spending a ton of money. Marvel, are you listening? That's for you, by the way. The story itself, this film in particular, is just like the 2001 film. Like I said, it rambles on and it comes to its conclusion, but it loses cohesion along the way as it goes. Now this one it's a new central character in this one named Noah. He's on a mission to get his family back and most of his clan back from another group of apes that has attacked his camp and taken them. And along the way, he winds up meeting a human who he figures out, oh, this one can actually talk, when they all thought that humans couldn't talk anymore, which harkens back to a handful of the older films from the Charlton Heston era. And they decide to help each other out, and they do. Now, the story itself is very self-contained, but what really holds the film together is all of the acting. You get a lot of what's going on in the apes society, how they've developed their own religion and how the teachings of Caesar are no longer exactly the way he had taught them. They've all been bastardized and everybody has their version of Caesar in their head. And so you have these pockets of apes using everything that they learned from Caesar in their own mind, and they're developing, basically, like I said, they're developing their own religion based on the teachings of Caesar, but how they themselves interpret it. And you're telling a very human story, but instead of using humans, you're using apes. Now, like I said, that is very much like the 2001 movie and pretty much like all of the original movies back in the day with Charlton Heston. It's a good movie itself, but like I said, along the way, all the way to its conclusion, which is 2 hours and 20 minutes in the making, it loses cohesion. A lot of the things that happen in the movie, you could say, you know what, if you took that out, this film would still be good. I honestly believe if you took out about 25 to 30 minutes in the movie and it was just shy of 2 hours or just at 2 hours, the movie would have been just fine. You could have came to an even quicker conclusion and the movie would probably have been better. But that extra 20 minutes kind of shakes everything off for me. It's not a bad movie by no stretch of the imagination. It does set itself up where it can have a sequel, and the director Michael Ball has said that there is going to be at least one more to follow this one, and they do have plans for it to become a trilogy unto itself. So if they do two more movies, then that would mean the Caesar trilogy, and this one would probably be the Noah trilogy. That's 6 movies, and then the other ones, you're talking a lot of Planet of the Apes films, including the 2001 one. I'm gonna have to keep reminding you of that one because that movie was actually good, as much as everybody likes to dog it out. Like I said, Wes Ball, I'm sorry, not Michael Ball, Wes Ball, the director, he says he wants it to be a trilogy, and it probably will. But just like 2001, keep in mind, that one was supposed to have follow-ups as well and become a trilogy unto itself, but they didn't do it. Right, they pulled the plug on it midway through pre-production on the second film to follow up that one. So could this one fall into that same category? It might. Honestly, though, it is still a really good movie. I think it's a little too long, and they have a handful of things in the film that I question, like why does one group of apes train eagles? And the eagles do factor into the end of the movie. I'm trying not to spoil it to you, but they do factor into the final climax of the movie. But we don't get why they actually trained them in the first place. Maybe just because it looks cool. That's pretty much the only thing I can come up with. But as I was saying, it's still a really good movie. There's not a lot to chew on. It is a very simple story. You can follow it easily. So if you want to see this movie, do see it. Just know it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and you're going to lose you're going to lose some stuff along the way. So you're just going to have to wait it out all the way up until the end of the movie. And, keep your eyes open, because a lot of the imagery in this one actually harkens back to not only the Caesar trilogy, but all of the older films as well. It is a really good movie, and I suggest you go and see it. While talking about X-Men 97, I said this, and I'll reiterate it here. Shogun is by far the best thing in 2024 thus far. And it's not even close. It's perfection. 10 out of 10. You're talking about a masterpiece of a show. It does not matter what you say to me. That is what I believe. And I promise you, if you look around, you will find more than enough people to agree with me to get you to want to watch this if you have not watched it already. Now, it's not hyperbole for me to say that. Once you watch this show, you will understand exactly what I've been trying to say for the past few weeks. It ticks every single box for a TV program. Period. The series is a faithful retelling of the original James Cavell novel from 1963. There was another film in 1980. It wasn't well received because it did take a lot of liberties with it, and it was, shot on a really shoestring budget, so they didn't really get it. But this one here does a great telling of it. The series itself is set in the Edo period of Japan. Is a country on the brink of civil war, as the emperor has now died, and his 5 retainers, the 5 heads of a council, have been tasked with keeping everything together until the emperor's heir comes of age and can take over. But there are 4 who decide that they want to band against this one and take him out and to usurp power from him. But he will not go quietly into the night. That man is played by Hiroyuki Sanada, and his character's name is Yoshii Torinaga. I'm gonna be calling him Torinaga because saying his name is really hard for me. Like I said, he's one of the 5 retainers. The emperor's gone, and they're trying to take power from him in order to split the country up into their own little kingdoms 4 ways and not 5 ways. Torinaga now has to navigate all the complexities of the political and the samurai lifestyle and having honor, and he has to figure out a way to not only save himself and to save his power, but also save the people who are under his protection. It is a fantastic just to watch Hiroyuki Sanada go through this entire thing, who is a producer on this show. It is a miracle how well he operates, and people don't really see him as like leading man material outside of doing Japanese works like this. He was also in The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. He was one of the main guys who was training Tom Cruise to be a samurai, and people forget that he's in that. He's done so many other things, and he's a fantastic actor. Look up his name and look at all the credits to it, and anything that you watch with him in it, I guarantee you will be pleased. This is all based on true historical events as well. They did change the names, obviously, for literary license and to inject their own pieces of fiction into it. But it is very much a true, it is very much a true story outside of the literary license that's been taken. These events, when they happen in real life, it wound up setting up the government under the Tokugawa shogunate, which led led the country of Japan, which was called Edo at the time, which is Tokyo actually. It led them into being a one unified country that we know of today. So, like I said, this is very much a true story, but they did, like I say, took a little bit of literary license in order to interject a little bit more of drama into it. But the drama is actually pitch perfect. It's not overwrought, it's not overdone. Everything is, it feels as if it's right there. They don't go out of their way to try to westernize anything about it. Most of the dialogue in it is Japanese. There's very little English in it, which is a big step because not a lot of shows will do that. They will speak it in English, or they will have very little Japanese. But no, this one is mostly Japanese, almost all Japanese, and a little bit of English when you do have like the pirate John Blackstone in it. You do have him speaking in English and trying to learn Japanese and trying to navigate being shipwrecked on this island and trying to learn about the culture and keep himself alive at the exact same time. It's a lot of a lot of push and pull in it. It is a fantastic series. I cannot go on enough about how good it actually is. The writing, it ranges from the crude to the poetic. The acting is superb on every level from every single person in it. I love the fact that the Japanese that they speak in it is not the Japanese that you and I would know now, because most of the Japanese now is a little bit westernized. But the Japanese spoken in it is the traditional Japanese, very hard, hard line, to where all the colloquialisms and slang have been removed, and there is a specific way you have to speak. And most of the younger actors in it did not know how to do it. So Sonata took his time in order to teach them while he's producing this and while he's directing a couple of the episodes. He took his time in order to teach them, like, hey, this is how you have to speak, because this is how they would have spoken in that time period. They wouldn't speak like we speak today. So everything in this is as authentic as it can possibly be. Not just the costumes, not just the locations, not just the story being told. It is authentic even down to the very words that they speak. It is awesome. Visually, it is as stunning as of a TV show that I have ever seen. Period. You name me a TV show where you think visually it's perfect, and I guarantee you, after you watch this will take your top spot. That's how much I believe in this show. Like I said, this is the best thing that I've seen in 2024 so far. We still have a lot left in 2024, so it may not be knocked out of its top spot, but definitely for right now, Shogun is the absolute number one thing, even over X-Men 97. And you know how much I love X-Men 97 after I've talked about it over the past few weeks. So if you have not watched this, please treat yourself. I guarantee you will love it. It is a fantastic show. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, it'll be time for the last call. So that's it, and that's all. It's time for the last call. I want to thank each and every single one of you for hanging out with me this week. You could have been doing anything and been anywhere else, but you decided to hang out with me with this pokey little podcast, and I truly appreciate it, honestly. I don't care if it's 1, 5, 10, 100, or 1,000 of you. I truly appreciate every single person that tunes in, and I know I say that every single week, but I mean it every single time I say it. I promise you that. This week's weekend watch list is simple. There isn't one. Why? Because it's Memorial Day weekend. This is not a time for sitting in the house and watching TV and watching films. I mean, you can, but I would rather for you to go outside, touch grass if you feel like it, go over your friend's house, or go over your family's house if you are so inclined, have some barbecue, have a drink or two, enjoy life, honor those people who have given their lives and given the ultimate sacrifice in defense of not only this country, but others around the world. That's what Memorial Day is for. I have people in my family that have served. No one actually died in battle, but I have an uncle who has now passed away. I remember him not only on Memorial Day, but on Veterans Day as well. But for everybody who has given their life, we thank you very much. And for every single person who has ever served in the military, thank you very much for your service. You are truly, truly appreciated. I don't care what anybody else says about you. I don't care how the government treats you. You are all heroes in my book. And if you feel like having a drink, you can have the drink I'm going to have. We haven't had a last call drink in quite a while, and I'm going to make some spiced iced tea. So it's iced tea with bourbon in it. I'm pretty sure you can find that a recipe for that anywhere on the internet and make it whichever way you want to make it. But that's what I'm going to have. I'm specifically making it this weekend because I haven't made it in a while. It's actually really good stuff if you've never had it. But besides that, it is time for us to go. Like I said, get out there, have some fun, take care of yourself, stay hydrated, stay blessed. You know how I love to say that. And if you are feeling lonely and you need somebody to talk to, and if you think there's nobody there, there's always somebody there. Pick up the phone, dial or text 988. If you feel like you just have to have somebody to talk to and you're just feeling out of place, there's always somebody there. You are never alone. I promise you that. You're talking to somebody who had to use that number more than one occasion, and I promise you they can help you just as much as they helped me. So it is time for us to go. Get out there and have some fun. Please don't sit in the house. Or if you feel like it, just sit in the house and read comic books. But just take care of yourself, all right? Take care of those around you. Don't do anything to harm yourself. And we will end this episode the same way we end every single episode. And I mean these words every single time I say it. God bless. I love you. And peace. See you next time.